Okay, so this is the first of a series of lessons that you're going to have on writing Excel macros. And we're going to focus on topics in physical chemistry when we're doing this. And so, first thing we need to talk about are the objectives for this particular lesson. So we have a very simple objective for this first lesson. You'll learn how to create a macro that will read a value from a spreadsheet cell, and then you can set the value of a spreadsheet cell. So whatever was entered on a spreadsheet, it will read it, and you can put the values into whatever cell you want to put it into. Okay, and then so we're gonna write a code that uses the if, then, else if, else construct. You're familiar with those. You've had your programming class. This is gonna be in VB script, Visual Basic. So I understand most of you did Java, right? But you should see it's very similar in terms of the basic idea of the flow of the logic in the program. And we'll use the select case as an alternative to the if, then, else if. Then you'll use the message box function in Excel. Okay. So what I need for you to do is just to follow along. I'm going to create a spreadsheet, create a macro that will demonstrate this particular uh, task. So we're going to create a spreadsheet that will instruct the user to enter the value. So you're going to enter the value and the unit of pressure in cells A2 and B2. Okay. And then we're going to write a macro so that if you press Control M, you hold on the Control key and press M, then the macro will do the following. It will echo the value that you entered in cell A2 and B2, and it will fill in the values of the pressure at different units in cells A5 through A8. You specified the unit in cells B5 through B8. So we're going to be doing automatic unit conversions in a way when we run this macro. So atmosphere, torr, bar, and Pascal. So we just limit ourselves to 4 of those. Okay? And then after that, it will be your turn. You're each going to create a spreadsheet that will do something similar for energy unit conversion, volume unit conversion, time, temperature, length, and mass conversion. So there's 6 of you in this class. You get 6 different tasks. So just assign that alphabetically. All right. So let's go ahead and open up an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, what are we supposed to do first? In cell A2 and B2, we're going to enter a value and a unit. So let's just say we want to do atmosphere of second row. Okay, A2. So atmosphere. Let's just put a title in row number 1. So this is project 1. Okay. Project 1 pressure unit conversion. Okay. Let me make this a little bigger. Did I start capturing the video? I did start recording? Okay. Okay. So let's just do 1 atmosphere right there. Okay. So let's just put instructions here for our user. Okay, so enter value and unit of pressure in cells A2 and B2. Okay, so we're going to do A2 and B2. So 1 here, atmosphere here. Okay. I'll move it over here. Okay, what are we supposed to do next? Then we'll tell the user that if he or she presses Control M, it will generate equivalent values in cells A4 through A5 through A8, right? So our output, let me say what output here would be, I want the pressure in atmosphere, and what else? What units did we say we were gonna do? atmosphere, torr, bar, and Pascal. So I want torr, bar, Pascal. Okay? Got it? So when I press Control M, it should give me for this one atmosphere. This should be come out to be 1, right? And what should be the pressure that comes out here? 760, and how many bars would that be? 1.01325 bar is 1 atmosphere. And how many pascals would that be? 1.01325 times 10 to the 5th, right? So that's our expected value. So now let's create a macro that would actually calculate that and put that in here. So the macro is going to read the value of the pressure and the unit, and then it will put in the values over here for the corresponding units that you need to convert it to. So the way you create a macro is you go to View, Macros, and then record a macro. Okay? We'll just call it macro 1. We'll just use the default name, and we're going to call it, and then the shortcut key. This is where you specify what letter has to be pressed while holding the control key to activate the macro. Don't use C, V, the ones that you use for cutting and pasting. Okay, so use a letter that's not used for anything else. So M is a good one for macro. And then hit OK. And now what it's going to do is it's going to start recording everything you're doing right now and create a code for that. We're not going to do that. We're going to manually enter our code. So we're just going to go ahead and stop the recording right away. Okay? So now you can view the macro that we just created. It's a do. So there's macro 1, and then you can edit. And you can see macro 1, see this is sub macro 1, and then end sub. So this is the beginning of the procedure, and this is the end of the procedure right here. So a macro is really nothing more than a procedure. Okay? And and you'll notice here there's a comment here that the keyboard shortcut for this is Control M. And there's nothing here. Now any line that starts with an apostrophe is a comment line. Okay? So in Visual Basic, that's what a comment line is. So let's enter something here. We want to read what is in cell. What cell was that? So by the way, you can switch back to your Excel spreadsheet over here. There's an icon on the top here. That switches you to the spreadsheet, and then you can go back, view macros, edit, go back to your macro there. Okay, or down here, I think you can switch between the Visual Basic code and the actual spreadsheet. You can do it that way there too. Alright, so what are we going to do? We're going to echo what is entered in cell A2 and B2, right? And the way you can do that, we're just going to say, okay, first let's define a variable. Okay, so we're going to say pressure, the value of the input value of the pressure. So you can call your variable whatever you want. Let's use something useful, something easy to remember. So P input value equals, the value is in which cell? Cell A2. So column A, row 2. Look at this. It gives you what this thing tells you. Gives you clues as to what you should be entering. So the first number you enter is the row. So this is row number 2, cell A2, right? I'm sorry. Let's see. Let me just verify. Row 2, column 1, right? This is row 2, column 1. So cell A2 is row 2, column 1. Row 2, column 1. And our P unit, our pressure unit, is cells row 2, column 2. Is that correct? This is B2 is row 2, column 2. Column B is the second column. Alright? And the way you would echo or you would basically you're just gonna send a message to the user when he presses Control M. Is you just use the message box function. Message box. Okay. You can just say you entered. Okay. So that's what's called a string. It's just a text. Okay. And then use the ampersand. That's shift 7. So we're just concatenating, we say, strings. So the P input value and the P unit. And I need to put a space in between. And then P unit. There. Okay, so message box just sends out a pop-up with that message. Alright? So now let me go back to my spreadsheet, and now I'm going to press Control M, and let's see if it does that. Okay, so hold on the Control key, press M, and just say, what does it say? You entered 1 atmosphere. Let's verify that it's actually working. Let me change this to 0.62563 atmosphere. I press Control M, and it says you entered 0.563 atmospheres. Let me change this to, okay, let me change this to 65 torr. I press Control M. It says you entered 65 torr. I'm gonna pause for a little bit now so I can get caught up. I'm gonna pause the recording. Yeah, hold on. Alright, so this is a good time to save your spreadsheet. So make sure you save it. Let me give it a name. Save it, whatever you want to call it. So it's project 1. And save it as an Excel macro-enabled workbook. Okay. Alright. So are we ready to continue? What are we doing next? We're supposed to convert to atmosphere, torr, bar, and Pascal, right? So let's go back to our macro. Okay. Let's do the easy one first. Let's just assume it's in atmosphere. Later, we're going to look at the possibility where the unit is not atmosphere. So let's just assume for now that it's in atmosphere. So the pressure in atmosphere would be whatever the input value is, right? The pressure in torr would be whatever the input value is. We multiply by 760, right? Correct? Whatever the value in bar is going to be what? Whatever the input value is, multiplied by 1.01325. And the pressure in Pascal is going to be whatever the input value is, multiplied by 1.01325 times 10 to the 5th. Okay, the way you enter times 10 to the scientific notation in Excel, okay, instead of saying times 10 raised to the power of, then you just put a letter E there. So that's 1.01325 E5. So those are the pressures, and so we're going to work, and notice it changes it automatically for you. Don't worry about that. That's basically the same thing. Okay, so where are we going to enter these? We're going to put them in, let's first look at the first one. Your atmosphere should be entered in cell A5, right? So row 5, column 1 is where you're going to put the value in atmosphere. So we're going to say the value now for cells row 5, column 1, okay, is the value in atmosphere. PA?
Like, you got 100, what's that symbol after?
That's a pound key. A pound, hashtag.
But
Huh? Yeah. Or you can actually it automatically did it for me. What I actually entered was 1.013325 times 10 to the fifth. Okay, but when I entered it, it adjusted it. It's basically the same thing.
I thought
Okay, so now I'm just gonna do the first one first. Row 5, column 1, that's cell A5. I'm gonna put the value of pressure in atmosphere. Let's see if this program works. So I'm gonna hit Control M. What should it tell me? You entered 65 torr, and I press OK. It put 65 here because it was assuming that my unit was atmosphere, right? So it didn't care what my unit was. It was just assuming my unit was atmosphere. So that's something we have to fix later. So let me just change this back to atmosphere. I'm gonna call this 1 atmosphere, and I'm gonna hit Control M again, and you can see it says you entered 1 atmosphere, and it puts 1 in cell A5. Okay, and now what do I do next? I'm going to say in cell A6, so cells row 6, column 1, I put the value in torr, right? And then in row 7, I'll put the value in bar. So cells row 7, column 1, it's the value in bar, 3 underscore bar. And in cells row 8, column 1, I'll put the value in Pascal. Okay? And let's go back to the spreadsheet. I'm now going to press Control M this time and see what it does. I entered 1 atmosphere, and I now have, and then it updates the values in cells A5 through A8. So 1 atmosphere is 760 torr, 1.01325 bar, and 101325 Pascal. Okay, now what if I change this to 0.5 atmospheres? What should I get? I hit Control M. It says you entered 0.5 atmosphere. I hit OK, and it updates my output. Okay, so you can see it looks like it's correct. So I'm going to go ahead and pause now so you can get caught up. Alright. Okay, so next thing we need to do is what?
Be usable for all the different things.
You want to be able to let the user be able to specify the unit and actually convert it right? So a strategy I would use here is whatever this unit is, convert it to atmosphere, and then the rest of this will just convert atmosphere to everything else. Okay, so we're going to use the if then else statement here. So I'm going to go back to the macro. Okay, view macro, edit. I could have just switched windows. Okay, so I'm going to do that before I actually do the conversions. Okay, so I'm going to insert it right here. Okay, I'm going to say if, okay, my P unit is atmosphere, okay, then, okay, so what I want to do is I want to actually get the value of the atmosphere first, right? So I'm going to say, then my P atmosphere will be whatever the input value is, okay? And then I say else if my P unit is, let's say, torr, then what would my P atmosphere be? Whatever the input value is times 760. Okay? Else, if my P unit is bar, then what would be my P atmosphere? Oh, wait a minute. If my value is in torr, how do I get my atmosphere? I divide by 760, right? Okay. Now, if my P unit is bar, then my atmosphere unit value will be input value. Whatever the value I have in bar, I have to divide that by 1.01325 to get the atmospheric value. the value in atmosphere. Else, if my P unit is Pascal, then the value in atmosphere is going to be P in whatever the input value is in Pascal. I divide it by 1.011325 times 10 to the fifth. Okay. Else, if it's not one of those 5 possible units, then I don't know what to do with it. Then you would just say, send a message to the user that says, I don't know what to do. So you just say, message box, please use at ATM, Tor, bar, or Pascal. I don't know. I do not know what to do. There. And then end if. Right there. Okay? So what it does is, okay, instead of assuming that the actual value you entered is in atmosphere, it figures out based on the unit what the value in atmosphere should be. So it's not, if the actual unit was atmosphere, then the value in atmosphere is whatever the input value is. Okay? If the unit is in torr, then whatever that input value is, you divide it by 760, so you get the value in atmosphere. If the input value, the unit is specified as bar, then the pressure in atmosphere would be whatever the input value divided by 1.01325, right? And if the value entered is in Pascal, then you just divide it by 1.01325 times 10 to the fifth. And if it's not one of those cases, you just send out an error message saying, I don't know what it is. And then you can have it set to default. You can say, just change P atmosphere to 1. Okay. And let's just reset us cells, what this 2-1. Set it to 1 atmosphere. Okay, so cells 2-1 and 2-2, just reset it to a default value. Okay, just override what was written. So let me see if that runs. Hopefully there's no error. Control M. I entered 0.5 atmosphere. Okay, it converted it already. So let's try Tor. Let's do 760 Tor. Control M. It says you entered 760 Tor, and you can see 760 Tor is 1 atmosphere. Oops, it's not the correct one, huh? What happened? So we got a bug, right? So I have to go back and see what's wrong with my code. Well, it's converting my input value still. So what I need to do is whatever this atmosphere value is, that should be the one that I have to multiply by 760. And I have to change this to whatever the atmosphere value is. I multiply by 1.01325. And my Pascal is whatever the atmosphere value is, I change it to 1.101325 times 10 to the fifth. Okay? Because my atmospheric pressure is not always going to be whatever the input value is. So I'm going to change it that way. And let me do it again. Hit Control M. I entered 760 Tor. Now I'm getting everything right. Okay? So, what was my strategy? Whatever was inputted by the user, I changed it to atmosphere. I calculated what it's going to be in atmosphere, and then I converted the atmosphere value to the other units. Okay? So now let's say I put here 1.01325 bar. I press Control M, and that gives me that. If I have a 1. Let's say 1 bar. I hit Control M, and you can see it updates it to 0.98692 atmosphere, 750 torr, 1 bar, which is 10 to the 5th pascals. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I'll leave the code up for you to look at so you can examine it carefully. Okay, just a couple of comments. Notice here after I gave the message that there was an error, it reset P atmosphere to 1. I have to define this here because P atmosphere will not have been defined anywhere before this part of the code. So if you did not define P atmosphere to be 1 here, the rest of this code is gonna have a problem. It's just gonna, I think it might just assume it to be 0. Okay, so you might note that when you're using P atmosphere down here, it must have already been defined before that. So it's either defined here, or here, or here, or here, or here. So you have to look at all possible cases. Make sure you do that, okay? Let's see. What's another way we could do this? We could, okay, let me just go back. And just to make sure that it does work. If I do enter a different unit, did I try this on? Okay. So let's say if I don't enter it correctly, so Control M, you can see 76 torr, and it doesn't recognize it because I expected my torr, the T in my torr, to be capitalized. Okay, and then it just reset your input to 1 atmosphere. All right. So here's another thing you could do. Instead of using the if statements, here's another way you could do this. You can use the select statement. In C, this is called switch. I don't remember what it's in Java. But if you can just say instead, you can just select case P in P unit. Okay, and then you do an N select over here. And then case, if the P unit is atmosphere, you can say that P atmosphere is whatever the input value is. Okay. In the case where P unit is torr, then you can say P atmosphere would be whatever the input value is divided by 760. And then K, in the case where the unit is bar, it's not indenting well. Okay, P, you can say P atmosphere would be the input value divided by 1.01325. In the case where it is Pascal, P atmosphere would be P input value over 1.01325 E5, and case else, and you do the same thing here. Basically, let me copy this. That'll be the case. So that's an alternative. And let's see if that works. You can say Control M, 1 atmosphere. If I say torr over here, Control M, entered 1 torr, it fixes it. Okay? That's the same thing. So if I do like 760 torr, Control M, gives me my values in atmosphere. Now the nice thing about using the case thing is, you could try other variations of the possibilities, but there's more elegant ways of doing it. But this is just another way of doing more. This is really just an alternative way of doing the if statements. Okay. So that's it for today.